Welcome to Talking Giants presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, here with my co-host, Justin Pennick. And we got our 53-man roster predictions / what we would do. So it's a little mix of both, where it's like, hey, you got to have some, you're not just creating exactly what you want. You got to have some realism in it. But also, like, you know what? There was a move that I just slated this guy in. And I was like, you know what? I don't think this would be the best if everyone's healthy. And obviously we have that key component too. We are doing this under the assumption of health, and a lot of times camp, the pup list, that type of stuff takes care of questions. Justin, how are you?
Bobby Skinner, I would say out of all the years that we've done this exercise, maybe this year is the toughest one, because some of these guys on my last three out lists, and even some guys that are, even the fourth, fifth guys that I wound up cutting, in this exercise, these were guys that were like legit depth guys for the Giants in 2021 and 2022. So that's the crazy thing. We're in past years, we're cutting guys where it's like, no doubt, no question about it, this guy's being cut. Now with this year's exercise, and I think it's a testament to that this roster has a little bit more depth on it. The guys that we're cutting this year, they were depth guys on past teams.
Yeah, and in other years, it's like, all right, it's hard to put together 53. Let me just throw in one guy that screw it. Like, let me just throw in Kelvin Benjamin as a tight end and let's see what happens.
Can't do that.
So yeah, this year it's you're making tough cuts, making tough decisions, and not every guy that's been drafted over the last 3 years is going to make this roster, I think. And obviously salary cap goes into that. So we'll get into all of that. First, Justin, this episode was brought to you by a special person. That person's name, Justin, is Tucker Breer. Breer Tucker. We actually have Tucker Cherry in the chat, Mark Breer, but now we have Tucker Breer. Justin, who is Tucker Breer?
Man, that threw me off. That really threw me off. It's like a mix of two of our favorite people in the world. But if you want to be one of our favorite people in the entire world, you can go to patreon.com/talkinggiants. And there are some tiers. And with those tiers, you get some benefits. We are your friends with benefits, as they say. You get to hang out with us live while we're recording the shows, and Bobby Skinner will send you some stickers in the mail. Plus, there's some shirt raffles a couple times a month. Those are the benefits. Patreon.com/talkinggiants.
Friends with the Benedicts. And someone in the chat just said, I got your sticker. Bobby's handwriting is really bad, so you get to see a sticker and my handwriting.
Yeah.
All right, Justin, let's get into this 53-man roster prediction / what we would do. We'll start at the top. We'll just go from quarterback down to special team, kicker and punter. At quarterback, obviously Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor. For me, I'm not carrying a third quarterback. Do you have anything against that?
Nope. I have two quarterbacks: Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor.
So we talked about it slightly the other day. I can't remember what podcast it was on. If Malik Willis is letting go, like, he is someone I would carry a third quarterback for, because I don't think he wants, he's not going to want to go from one practice squad to another practice squad, and maybe he does. But I feel like that would be like a perfect spot for everybody, where he's the one person in the league that I would carry 3 QBs on. Just, hey, you're going to have that active roster, you're going to have that type of salary, where you get to develop him, see what happens with him. Maybe he could be the backup next year after Tyrod Taylor's contract expires with a cheap player. And then he also gets some of the best quarterback coaching in the NFL. But obviously he's not on the roster. But I just wanted to throw that out there, since to make the QB conversation a little less boring, that I am very much a 2 QB guy for rosters. But if Malik Willis somehow frees up and he's just picking and not being traded for a 7th round pick to whatever team, that would be a pretty exciting guy to have on the roster and just to build on. And again, you're not sacrificing any type of draft capital or cap space for it either.
Do you think he would get somewhat of a rich backup QB contract?
No, because that type of stuff is like he'd be like on an Isaiah Hodgins type contract, where he becomes like an restricted free agent going forward. So he can't be cut and then get signed. And also, he looked really bad last year too. So no one's really going to.
I do think there's a lot of other teams that may be thinking exactly what you're thinking about, how I still would want to get my hands on this guy.
No, I definitely agree. But I'm this would be a good spot for Malik Willis, because you have the coaching here. You can be the third quarterback, and there's a path to you becoming the backup. With Tyrod Taylor's contract expiring this season.
Yeah.
So Like I just think it'd be a good spot for him. I don't know.
Yeah,
I didn't even plan to talk about this, but I kind of just it popped in my head as we went through this.
Yeah, why not?
Running back. How many are you carrying?
I have 3.
Okay, I have 3 too. Saquon Barkley, Eric Gray, and Matt Breida. I think we're pretty set on that. And this isn't position battle, so we're not going to be like, who's the RB2 type stuff on this. But those are my 3 guys, and I'm going to use Eric Gray in a different role too later on.
Yeah, I was about to say, are we going to make any designations for special teams now, or are we going to do that later?
Let's do that later. We'll talk returners. So we just kind of
Got it.
spoiled. Eric Gray is going to be used in the return game. Gary Brightwell, it's been fun, but
Been real, bro.
he doesn't add much to this team. You get a back who's I think is just a much superior prospect than he was in Eric Gray, and then Matt Breida obviously was the backup last year. So you're going to use all 3 of those guys. Matt Breida probably would spell Saquon Barkley more with that speed, and they like to use him in some of those 2-back personnels. When they get in that pony stuff, and they use some wildcat and use them on jet sweeps. So, yeah, Saquon, Gray, Breida. Brightwell did return kicks last year, but he wasn't good at it. So,
No.
Not valuing his special teams. Wide receiver. This is where there's a log jam. Slayton, Hodgins, Hyatt, Campbell, and Wandale are locks. Those 5 players are flat-out locks. We'll see where Wandale is health-wise, but we're doing this under the assumption of being ready to go for training camp. So you have 5 players that are a lock, Justin, and this is a position where a lot of teams only carry 5 wide receivers. Where are you going after that?
So I'm carrying 6. So that means that there's one more that you didn't list, right? You listed Paris Campbell as a lock.
Yeah, Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins, Jalen Hyatt, Paris Campbell, and Wandale Robinson as locks. So that's 5.
I'm really open to this being a camp battle. So this isn't necessarily as a prediction of who I think is going to win that camp battle. I know for a fact that the Giants love Colin Johnson. Like we saw it last year. We knew that they liked him. He would have played over Darius Slayton, and I even asked a similar person who I asked last summer about, who told me about Richie James. And that's why I started talking about him nonstop. Like who's that guy this summer? And he told me Colin Johnson. It's like, well, we knew that they like Colin Johnson. So Colin Johnson could be that 6th guy coming off of a season-long injury, but I'm accounting for special teams here in my prediction. I have Jamison Crowder as my 6th guy.
So I have 7.
You have 7.
Jamison Crowder is in there because he's not the player that he once was, but he does add value in the slot. Like you can throw him out there and not be devastated by him playing for your team. And this is where I made a tough cut, man. I'm going Jeff Smith because he does add true special teams values. He has some speed. And this is why when the Sterling Shepard contract, when he signed that 1-year minimum contract, so he can be cut without it being a cap issue at all. Right. This is why I was like, man, I was just kind of hoping he'd retire. Because it's just what is the plan for Sterling Shepard? Because you have 5 locks ahead of him to play just wide receiver. Sterling Shepard's obviously not going to play special teams, and I do value his leadership and his and stuff like that. But what is the path for him? And the path only really is other guys being injured. But guess what? Sterling Shepard is usually the injured guy, right? So we're not talking about, these other guys in front of him are always hurt. Like Slayton, Hodgins, Hyatt, and aren't guys that get hurt. Campbell is coming off of his first full season, and Wandale wasn't until this last year. But you have all the Shepard is the guy that gets hurt, and obviously there's a good chance he could start the season on the PUP list, but also his injury was early in the season, so it's not like the year before, and he was ready, a couple weeks in the training camp last season. That's why this is a tough cut, because I love Sterling Shepard. I love what he's been as a New York Giant, but it's just what is the plan for him if everything goes right? Now again, injuries and stuff handle this, but Shep is the injury guy, so I am saying under this imaginary land that everyone's ready to go day 1 of training camp, Sterling Shepard would be my cut because I'm not playing him at wide receiver ahead of any of those other 5 guys.
Yeah, man, I was hoping that I would be the bad guy in the room and the only one to do it. And I'm not the only bad guy in the room because I also do not have Sterling Shepard making my hypothetical 53-man roster for the same reasons that you said. It's awesome that the Giants have this depth. And really, this isn't even like a reflection on Shep, like making this choice. It's a reflection on where this Giants roster's at. And also Shep just isn't dependable, and he hasn't been dependable in a long time. And you can even say that like Jamison Crowder, well, he's a little injury prone too. Jamison Crowder, 2 of the last 3 years, has played 12 games in a season. Sterling Shepard, I'm pretty sure, only has 2 or 3 seasons where he's played more than 12 games in his entire career. And he hasn't played more than 12 games since 2020. So,
and Crowder gives you returner value. Like that was the tiebreaker for me. Because Jeff Smith works as a gunner. Like Jeff Smith is a place like he's going to be 70% of special team snaps. Jamison Crowder, like, yeah, Sterling Shepard's a better wide receiver than him, but Jamison Crowder has a returner value. So it's like, okay, I can see a path for him to be on the roster where Shepard doesn't have that. And like you said, like Crowder is more durable than Sterling Shepard. These days. So those were the 2 tiebreakers for me. So,
and at least for me, I don't feel the need to carry 7 wide receivers because I feel pretty confident that our practice squad guys, like let's just say, if Colin Johnson, maybe makes it to the practice squad, David Sills is somehow gonna stay around here, right? Bryce Ford Wheaton, if he stays around the practice squad, right? I feel confident in if somebody goes down and we need to elevate somebody, I feel confident about, okay, even not carrying 7 wide receivers, I feel confident carrying 6 because whoever maybe we can call up, they can kind of come in and they'll be all right. And then we also even have just the starter depth to begin with. If Slayton goes down, you still have Hodgins Hyatt on the outside too. You have Paris Campbell that has that outside inside versatility. This wide receiver room should be fine, and it definitely shouldn't be like last year.
Yeah, and talking about guys we cut, like do they make it? Colin Johnson actually could be a candidate that gets claimed. He was already claimed once by the Giants when the Jags cut him. Yep. And I'm sure the Bills would actually like value a guy like Colin Johnson. I remember them liking him in the draft.
I just ran off a few though. I mean, there's place for Wheaton, a bunch of guys that they even used last year. So. Yeah,
so Colin Johnson, but Bryce Ford Wheaton, like with all the guaranteed money, I'm in there. Unless someone claims him to their active roster, he would be on the Giants practice squad. He's not going to go to a different practice squad. And I think if he was in any, he would have to have the most amazing preseason ever for him to be claimed. Because if he was a claim candidate, he would have just been drafted in the 7th round by somebody.
I'm also very open to, and I don't know about you, like making this 53-man roster prediction. I'm excited to see who, like, I think it's a competition. Who's going to win that wide receiver 6, or I don't know if they're going to carry 7, that last wide receiver spot. It is definitely a wide open competition.
Yeah, like when we do our camp battles pod, a lot of that stuff can be already slated in, and there's not really true competition. The last couple wide receivers on the roster should be a flat out competition. So like you said, you can make arguments for a lot of these different guys after the 5 that are locks on the roster.
Yeah.
All right, tight end. Darren Waller and Daniel Bellinger are locks for the roster. I'm going Chris Myrick as my 3rd tight end because the H-back versatility. Like we need an H-back on the roster. I think Myrick is going to just would be a better blocker than Dre Miller or Ryan Jones. And then I'm not keeping Lawrence Cager because we have Darren Waller, and I think Lawrence Cager kind of comes somewhat redundant when you have a Darren Waller on the roster.
I am carrying 4 tight ends.
Okay.
And I am keeping Lawrence Cager on the team. Now, if I were to make a revision to this, it depends what you value, right? If I were to make a revision, I would cut Chris Myrick, and then I would be using Daniel Bellinger as kind of like that H-back kind of role, because I think he did it, and he did it last year. And you saw like most of Daniel Bellinger's explosive plays actually came lined up as a fullback. Remember the 2 Vikings games? Those there was a stretch towards the end of the season that he was being used as a receiver like that. The Colts game, stuff like that. So I think Bellinger can slide into that role just fine. You don't need Myrick, but where you do need Myrick is if you want to have 12 personnel, you want to take Darren Waller off the field. A Bellinger-Myrick combo of running the ball. And then also that doesn't mean that if Bellinger and Myrick are on the field, that doesn't mean you can't pass the ball. Those guys can run routes, and it's not like you're becoming totally unpredictable. But for that reason, that's why I am carrying 4 tight ends. I'm carrying 4 tight ends because Darren Waller is a guy that is injury prone. Lawrence Cager is a guy that is a receiver that has receiving upside. And I mentioned Bellinger and Myrick 12 personnel packages. How about Waller and Cager 12 personnel packages? Why not? Let's get crazy with super ultra speed on the field.
So instead of doing Waller, Cager 12 personnel, the argument for me would be to only keep 3 is, we'll just do 13 personnel where Waller splits out.
Sure.
Like, and then you can run out of some 2 tight end stuff while keeping Waller on the field, flexing him out the slot, and then having 2 wide receivers on the field, whether it's Slayton and Hodgins or Hodgins and Hyatt, Slayton and Hyatt, whoever. So the reason I valued Jeff Smith's special teams over Lawrence Cager as a 4th tight end. And then I want to be able to run out of 2 tight end stuff with Daniel Bellinger and Chris Myrick. And
that's why I have 4. I mean, I also have 4 because Darren Waller, his injury history, and I am accounting for that, and I'm having that insurance and backup plan at the tight end position before the season. So
yeah, for me it'd be Bellinger is just the insurance, because it's not like Cager's some amazing receiver. He's just got speed where you can scheme him open and stuff.
Right.
All right, offensive line. We'll start with tackle. Thomas and Neal are the starters. I'm only keeping 1 swing tackle, and I'm keeping Tyree Phillips.
I also have 1 swing tackle, but I prioritize guys that could also swing outside that mainly play interior.
So you only kept 2 offensive tackles?
Oh no, I have 3: Thomas, Neal, and then Tyree Phillips.
Okay, yeah, so I could keep Tyree Phillips. Obviously, Tyree Phillips, if he wanted to be a starter, his best path there is guard, but he's a backup at this point in his career. Didn't do great when Neal went down, but played honestly a little better than Neal. And
how many linemen do you have?
9.
I have 9 too. Okay.
So Matt Parrott was a cut for me. We're heading into the last year of his contract. If Thomas were to go down, there's no good answer. Like, I don't know if I trust Parrott or Tyree Phillips there more, but if Neal goes down, I trust Tyree Phillips. I think he'd be better in the run game than Matt Parrott. And then pass pro, I think he can. Phillips, I trust on the island a little more, where Parrott, if we're working like tight end help and stuff like that, I probably like him more just because he has that athletic ability and size. But I just went Tyree Phillips with there, and Matt Parrott's a cut for me.
I agree. I have the same thing.
Offensive guard, Azudu, Bredesen, and Glowinski are locks. I guess we can include center. Let's do guard and just interior offensive line. So Azudu, Bredesen, Glowinski, and John Michael Smits are locks. This was tough. I decided to keep Marcus McKeithen on the roster, despite that he tore his ACL last year. But you did invest a draft pick from your first class. You don't want to give up on that talent. And then we'll go through our last 3 and last 3 out. But this was one, I just went Shane Lemieux. And I am, at this point of his career, I am telling Shane Lemieux that you are a center. Like, no flexing. Like, you are flat out a center. You practice at center. Hopefully you can become good enough to be a backup center in the NFL. But I need somebody on this roster to focus solely on playing center after John Michael Smits, and I don't want that to be J.C. Hausenbauer. And to me, I'm going to use that as Lemieux because I want Bredesen to be in the rotation at guard.
Okay. I also have Marcus McKeithen making the roster, and I have Devery Hamilton. I am cutting and letting go Shane Lemieux, even though I hate that.
I mean, I don't think Shane Lemieux at this point in the career, letting him go is not like a hate.
I hate it because I seriously do think, and we are using extremely small sample sizes of the first 19 snaps of the 2021 season, and then even training camp last year. I really do think Shane Lemieux was going to take a jump if the dude could just stay healthy and play in football games. And the issue for him is that he couldn't be. He can't right now at this stage of his career. So it really stinks. But I'm Devery Hamilton's my final offensive lineman in here.
Yeah, he came back. He had that foot injury in the first preseason game. Comes back. They start him one game. The foot is still injured, and he looks bad. And the foot was still injured, and then he went on IR after that, where it's like you do feel bad for Shane Lemieux, because I did like him as a 5th round pick out of Oregon, with the run blocking upside, and then came in and played as a rookie, was really bad in pass protection as a rookie, but it's like, okay, could there be a path for this guy to move into an average pass protector? But he hasn't been able on the field, and availability is a huge part of, to me, for being but again, like, I kept Lemieux over him. Devery Hamilton, I'm probably someone you put on the practice squad. We've really never seen Devery Hamilton play in a regular season game.
I value the versatility. That's really what it comes down to for me. Guard, tackle, versatility. I mean, there was even I think maybe there was one practice last summer because remember they just had 0 offensive linemen for a hot stretch last year. They had like 0 depth at offensive line. They even had like Devery Hamilton snapping the ball for a practice. So that's a guy that I grew to really like during camp last year. He had a solid preseason. I understand that we haven't seen him during regular season action. I would hope that my 9th offensive lineman on the roster. I don't need him to have a tremendous amount of regular season experience, but I need him to be reliable and I need him to be versatile because if he has to slide in at tackle, hey, at least he can do it. He has experience in it and the coaching staff somewhat trusts him. If he needs to slide in at guard, we definitely feel comfortable, with Devery Hamilton in an emergency situation having to do that. So that's why he's my 9th lineman on the roster, the big versatility factor.
Yeah, backup offensive line conversation is always fun because this guy sucks. It's like, yeah, he's a backup offensive lineman in the NFL. They're not good. Like, I find me a good backup. Maybe you can find me a good backup in the NFL. Find me the second good backup on a roster. Yeah, like it's basically impossible to do unless you just have a draft pick that you don't want to start right away. So there's that. All right, so on offense, basically our only differences were I kept Jeff Smith from the wide receiver tight end room. You kept Cager, and then you kept Hamilton over Lemieux. So yeah, I mean I can get down with both of those. All right, defense. Actually, no. Talk about something.
Ooh, let's talk about something, and what we're going to be talking about is SeatGeek. They are a bunch of geeks, and they provide some seats for your ass, your big old ass, to sit down. And today's episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. Sitting is one of my favorite activities. It is my favorite activity. If you don't know what SeatGeek is, they're a ticketing app that makes buying tickets super, super simple. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek, they are the #1 rated ticketing app ever in the world that has ever existed ever in the universe. There are more than 70,000 events, every single day on SeatGeek, including sports, concerts, festivals, and more. I'm telling myself not to do this because I regret it every time I go, because getting to Yankee Stadium is like going to a different fucking country. But Yankee tickets are really cheap on SeatGeek, and it's like screaming my name. Like, hey, Justin, take this ticket that's in section like 420 or 320. The ticket's like $5 behind home plate where you can see everything. You can see balls and strikes. You can see everything. It's $5. You have to go. So I may actually go. They always want to make sure that you're getting a good deal. So I'm clicking on that deal that's $5 and it's green. And that's good. We've got the hookup. Use code Giants for $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. That's $20 off your first purchase with promo code Giants. Click the link in the description to download the app. You'll be glad you did.
You'll be glad you did. All right, defense, edge. Kayvon, Aziz, and Jihad Ward are locks. How many are you keeping? I'm sticking with 4.
I'm going 5.
I have Habakkuk Baldonado as the 4th. I'm only keeping 4, and I'm just like, hey, at least I can trust him to be a good run defender, and there's some modest pass rush potential. O'Shane Ximines, we know what he is. Ellerson Smith, blah. And then Timon Fox. I'd like to keep Timon Fox on the roster, but I valued other players ahead of him, so I'm keeping Baldonado.
I have Baldonado, and I have Timon Fox. Goodbye, O'Shane Ximines. And Ellerson Smith.
Ellerson Smith is going to go down as one of the weirdest Giants draft picks.
Don't tell me, was he a 3rd rounder?
4th rounder. Top of the 4th round.
Makes me feel a little bit better.
Top of the 4th round of the 2021 draft. He was actually a guy me and Falado talked about, and I was just like, the dude just can't play the run at all. And then he added weight, had the missed year because his college didn't play the COVID year, and just has not been able to. Like every time he gets on the field, he's off the field for an injury. So just like one of the out of all the draft classes that we've covered, he is the biggest "do you exist" player, right?
For sure.
Like 2019, Corey Ballantyne contributed to the Giants much more than Ellerson Smith.
Did Ellerson Smith block a kick? Did he block a punt?
I think he did, and then he got injured like the play after. I think it was that Eagles game. They blocked they did because Azeez Ojulari got that sack. Yeah. And they blocked the kick. And I think that was Ellison Smith, and then he got hurt like on the next play. So I'm keeping 4, you're keeping 5. Timon Fox was one I wanted to keep, but I valued other guys who over him. All right, defensive tackle. I mean, there's 4 easy. Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, A'Shawn Robinson, Raheem Nunez-Roches, Nacho. The 5th, I'm going to go Jordan Riley. He's a more recent draft pick over DJ Davidson. DJ Davidson coming off the injury. I mean, probably the 2 picks out of the last, the 2 Joe Shane draft classes where they just didn't do much, where I saw their ceiling as this spot, the 5th defensive tackle. But you got to have a 5th defensive tackle, and I decided to go Jordan Riley over DJ Davidson.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is even, another like sneaky camp battle too.
This should be like a flat out, whoever wins it, no bias going into camp.
Yeah. Ryder Anderson, go out and win it.
Here's the thing with Ryder is, though,
he plays like a different spot, right?
Like he's not going to play nose tackle like those 2 guys are. So it's like you got to have someone on obviously A'Shawn can slide over there, but I'd like to have someone who's like just focusing on that nose tackle spot, and I think Riley and Davidson were that. So Ryder Anderson, we love you, but so you don't have Ryder Anderson on the team.
No, I don't, and that's tough for me.
Disrespectful. Ryder Anderson just can't play the run. At least not now in his career. Converted edge to 5 technique. But he did have some nice pass rush reps here and there. But when you got Dex and Leo, we're not going to rely on him. All right, inside linebacker. You can make an argument to like only keep 4 of these guys or 7, because when you include special teams and stuff, and the fact that it's such a bad position after Okereke. So Bobby Okereke, I think Bobby Okereke is the only true lock. McFadden, I think, is a solid lock. Beavers too. So I kept those 3, and then I am going to keep Jared Davis because they played him over Micah McFadden. He's got the most experience on the roster. Out of all those, guys for the inside linebacker 2 spot. Do you have all 3 of those guys making it or no?
Well, yeah, all 4. Okereke, McFadden, Beavers, Davis. So I have a total of 5 interior linebackers on the team.
So Cam Brown is your 5th, right?
Cam Brown is my 5th.
He's the one special team guy where it's like we can point to actual special team stuff with him.
Yeah. I will say about Gerard Davis, Bobby, I can easily see, just knowing how training camp stuff happens, we see a lot that vets are cut, and guys that even lower end draft picks or even like UDFA young guys are prioritized. I would not do this because the Giants interior linebacker room is super young, but they did it last year with obviously letting Blake Martinez go. And that became like a super young and vulnerable room with like nobody in it. I think that there's a chance that they will keep Deontay Johnson and Gerard Davis will be a training camp cut.
I'm hoping for that.
Okay.
Because Jared Davis he is what he is. Now, he was the best what they had last year, which is so sad how bad the linebacker room was last year. But I would hope that so at least you can get some life and hope into that room. And hey, Deontay Johnson could come in and fight for a starting job. Like, I know that sounds insane, but that's how bad this spot is, where Beavers would be the favorite if he wasn't coming off an injury. But he is coming off of an injury. Micah McFadden, like, there's some really fun stuff about his game, but can he be a good down-the-down linebacker? Deontay Johnson, like, he's one of the few guys we get to talk about from college that actually just plays linebacker. Go watch him against Ohio State. Like, he played solid versus that team who had a lot of, NFL players up front. 3 guys that got drafted and 1 guy who could probably get drafted next year. Almost intercepted CJ Stroud. The only reason he didn't is because the ball, he dropped it, right? Like, it was a really good coverage play. It wasn't just a bad CJ Stroud throw. Like, he made a great play in coverage. So there's that, but I'm not going to force it right now. I put Carter Coughlin in here too as a special teamer. He's been a key special teamer for them. He forced that fumble versus the Panthers last year to start, to kick off the game. And so I do have Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin surviving their entire rookie contracts, which I think, again, when I talk like that 2020 draft class, you got 2 stars in Thomas and McKinney, and then got some of those 7th and 6th rounders turning into guys. And Crowder would still be on this roster if he didn't complain about playing time too.
It's true. True. Yeah, I only have 5. I don't have. I mean, I wish I had room for Coughlin, and I don't have room right now.
So I kept Coughlin. Cornerback: Adoree Jackson, Deontay Banks, Cordell Flott, locks. Aaron Robinson. I have not given up on Aaron Robinson, by the way.
Me neither.
Like last year, he was playing outside, and me and you both were kind of had like just a nauseous feeling about it, where it's like, I think this guy can turn into a solid slot corner, and especially in this defense that is so man coverage, wants to play man coverage, and he plays the run really well. Like, he's a man cover corner who
aggressive corner.
Yeah, like he was a draft pick for Patrick Grant to transition to more man coverage, and then got injured. I haven't given up hope on him yet, despite all the injury stuffs. Where like I want to see him come in and compete for nickel corner. I do, like with Cordell Flott, like best man win. So I do have Cordell Flott. Trey Hawkins, no way I'm letting him get off the roster with that athletic ability from the 6th round. Can slot him in the special teams to start. And then one of my last 3 in, I'm keeping Amane Aurorier. So just so I have another outside corner presence after Jackson and Banks, because like I said, I want Robinson moving into the slot, and then Hawkins ain't ready yet. So I got Aurorier as my 6. I'm keeping a 6 corner.
Yeah, I have 6 corners too. Adoree, Banks, Flott, Robinson, Trey Hawkins, and I have Nick McLeod.
Nick McLeod was someone I thought about keeping. I thought about bringing 7 corners, because McLeod can do special teams. He has versatility to play slot, outside, safety. They like him as a run defender too. So I thought about keeping McLeod. So we both have Darnay Holmes being cut. And I think it just comes down to he's not the great scheme fit. You have Aaron Robinson. And again, that contract escalator for playing time for day 3 picks screws him. Which, like, that should be something that they worked at. It's kind of crazy how the rookie contract, like the vets fought for the rookie contract wage scale, and it ended up screwing vets, right? Because like that rookie escalator that Darnay Holmes gets from going from a $900,000 contract to $2.5 million, but there's no dead cap with it. So it screams cut me if you're not like a for sure starter. We went through this battle with Darius Slayton last year. It was about
to be like, didn't Slayton do the same thing? Like he was almost cut because of this like same reason.
Yeah, and he's forced to take a pay cut, right? And also, it's like teams just value young guys because they have cheaper contracts over vets. So it's like vets are out of the league quicker. I wish they would have never fixed the rookie wage scale. And also, I would like teams to invest in quarterbacks they draft from the 1st round a little more. And now that they are cheap, teams throw them away, and they're not willing to hold on to them as much.
It does suck for it sucks for Darnay. I consider Darnay Holmes a very successful 3rd round draft pick. I do.
4th round pick. If Patrick Graham is the coach still, I'm not cutting Darnay. But we have a man scheme, and he just doesn't fit that. And we're doing this under the assumption of guys being healthy. So if Aaron Robinson gets hurt in camp again, I'm not moving off Darnay. But
right,
with everyone assuming health, I'm using that extra $1.5 million as wiggle room for the season. Safety. This was a position where. So, like, I just kind of go through this and, like, okay, locks and just, like, filling out, like, you have to have this many players at these positions. This was the only position where I put one, like, you have to have 4 safeties on a roster. I have 5, and this was the one that where it's, like, 1st round, like, I'm keeping all these 5 guys. I'm not making no hard decisions for me. So, Xavier McKinney, obviously. And I'm keeping all of Javarius Owens, Dane Belton, Bobby McCain, and Jason Pinnock. I mean, they all bring different roles to the team. There's no clear second guy there. Every single one of them can contribute on special teams, and you lose Julian Love as a special team contributor. So it's more than most teams will keep with safety. I'm keeping 5, but it's not a hard decision for me to keep 5 at all.
I agree. I have the same 5, same exact reasons. Usually have 4.
Yeah. Special teams: Graham Gano, Jamie Gillian, only kicker and punter on the roster. Who are you going? Casey Kreider or Cam Lyons? They did give a UDFA contract to Cam Lyons. Who are you going?
I think I'm going to give the slight edge to Casey Kreider.
I hope Casey Kreider is on the roster until he's like 43 years old.
Sure.
Like I want it. Like when the Giants win a Super Bowl again, I want Casey Kreider to be a part of that. Like, I want him to be a legend like Zach DeOssie, even though Kreider's probably actually a better snapper than Zach DeOssie.
Wow.
People forget, like, that snap in the 49ers game was bad. And Tynes banged it in. Like, I think there's been one bad Casey Kreider snap in 3 years with the Giants. I think it was week 1 versus the Titans. And it led to us winning the game because we went for 2. So how about that?
Chess, not checkers.
So there's that. All right, so who are your returners out of the guys we kept? Mine are Jamison Crowder and Eric Gray.
Same here.
Jamison Crowder is definitely the punt returner. Eric Gray I can use as a kick returner. So those are my returners.
Yep. Matt Breida is also like, wasn't he used as like that second returner last year as like the lead blocker for Gary Brightwell?
I can't remember, to be honest.
I don't. You know, how many fucking kickoffs do you watch? And I'm even talking to you at home too. You can't tell me how many special teams plays and kickoffs and kick returns do you watch to start every Giants game, and you cannot tell me who is on special teams. And
most of them are touchbacks. That's why.
Yeah, that's also true.
Who are guys that are on the roster because of special teams? For me, it's Jeff Smith, Cam Brown, and Carter Coughlin.
Cam Brown for me. That's kind of like I didn't make any designation with anybody on the roster besides Jamison Crowder, who actually does play wide receiver, and Cam Brown, and I said you are solely a special teamer.
Yeah. So like those are the 3 guys where if players ahead of them got hurt on the depth chart, I'm keeping them on the roster, but I'm bringing someone in at those positions to actually play those positions. Like, I don't want Cam Brown, Carter Coughlin, or Jeff Smith playing. I mean, Jeff Smith you could throw out for a few wide receiver reps, but I don't want to go into a game where I'm giving him 30% of the snaps or anything like that. Last 3 out. Mine were Darnay Holmes, Sterling Shepard. There's so many different ones. So Sterling Shepard was one, Darnay Holmes, and I want to say Matt Parrott, but I think Nick McLeod is part of my last 3 out, more so than Matt Parrott, because I was always going to make a decision between the swing tackles. I didn't want to keep 4 tackles. So
you did keep both last year, though. Parrott was
on PUP to start the season.
Yeah, he spent like half the year on PUP. So I guess
then he was on the active roster. I mean, they had 4 at the end of the season. So
yeah, they did.
So I wouldn't be surprised.
Maybe because didn't Neal go down around the same time that Parrott kind of came back?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess my last 3 out will be Darnay, Shepard, and Nick McLeod / Matt Parrott. Who are yours?
Shep, Lemieux, Holmes.
Okay, so the same except for I kept Lemieux. Last 3 in, mine were Shane Lemieux, Jared Davis, and Amani Aurorier, where I thought about keeping McLeod over Aurorier or just adding McLeod and getting rid of somebody else. Lemieux, I thought about Devery Hamilton. I thought about just not having him on the roster and keeping McLeod or something like that. And then Jared Davis, where it's like maybe I want to keep Deontay Johnson or just keep the 5 linebackers when you include the 2 special teamers of Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin.
My last 3 in, Lawrence Cager, definitely a very luxury, like having that 4th tight end on the roster. Is it necessary? Is it not? Jamison Crowder, like that's like a very big who's going to win that wide receiver 6 battle for me. And Nick McLeod. I guess you don't technically need 6 corners. Maybe you can get by with 5, but I think they had 5 to maybe start last year. But I feel like you need these corners. You're going to go through the depth chart there, and we need some outside inside versatility plus Nick McLeod special teams value right there.
Yep. All right. We're finishing this early, but I want to just finish it early because just in case we're recording this on Tuesday, just in case there's any breaking news in the next 48 hours or so. So we appreciate you guys. Justin, the lights just went off on Justin. Justin, say something. I want to see you in the dark.
I am in the dark.
He's in the dark. All right. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back on Tuesday with Dan Snyder of the Big Blue Banter podcast. We're going to have him on to talk about the draft and stuff. So we appreciate you guys. We'll see you then. Until then, let's go Big Blue.